The Wiseman has been removed from Smackdown. Nick Aldis just made the most shocking decision of his tenure as general manager, and the entire wrestling landscape has been turned upside down. This is massive, and we're breaking down every single detail right now. Welcome to Suplex Rumble, where we bring you the most comprehensive breakdowns of the biggest moments in professional wrestling. If this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button and smash the notification bell because stories like this are exactly why this channel exists. Ladies and gentlemen, we are witnessing wrestling history. Nick Aldis, the general manager of Friday Night SmackDown, has made an executive decision that nobody saw coming. He has fired Paul Heyman from SmackDown. The legendary advocate, the master manipulator, the Wiseman himself has been removed from the blue brand, and the shockwaves are reverberating throughout the entire industry. We're going to break down how this happened, why it happened, what it means for SmackDown, and most importantly, what comes next. Let's dive in. To understand the magnitude of this decision, we need to talk about the relationship between Nick Aldis and Paul Heyman, because this wasn't a sudden development. This was the culmination of months of tension, power struggles, and conflicting visions for SmackDown. Nick Aldis assumed the role of SmackDown general manager with a clear mission: restore order, establish authority, and ensure that SmackDown operates with professionalism and respect for the rules. Aldis comes from a background of traditional wrestling values. He believes in fair competition, consequences for actions, and maintaining the integrity of championship opportunities. His vision is SmackDown as a brand where the best competitors rise to the top through merit, not manipulation. Paul Heyman, on the other hand, is the definition of manipulation. For decades, the Wiseman has operated in the gray areas of professional wrestling. He's a master strategist, a brilliant advocate, and someone who understands how to exploit every loophole, bend every rule, and push every boundary to benefit his clients. Heyman doesn't just play the game, he rewrites the rules of the game while he's playing it. From the moment Aldis took control of SmackDown, these two philosophies were destined to collide. And collide they did repeatedly. It started small. Heyman would manipulate match stipulations to favor his clients. Aldis would counter by adding additional requirements or changing match conditions. Heyman would orchestrate backstage attacks to remove obstacles from his clients' paths. Aldis would respond with suspensions, fines, and warnings. But the tension escalated dramatically over recent weeks. Heyman allegedly interfered with multiple championship opportunities, manipulated contract negotiations, and even influenced which competitors got featured on major broadcasts. Sources backstage reported that Heyman was operating as if he had general manager-level authority, making decisions that undermined Aldis's leadership and created chaos in the SmackDown locker room. The breaking point came when Heyman's actions directly affected the outcome of a major SmackDown event. Without spoiling specific match details, let's just say that Heyman's interference was so blatant, so disrespectful to the authority structure, that Aldis was left with no choice but to take decisive action. According to eyewitness reports, Aldis called Heyman into his office for what everyone expected to be another warning, another fine, another temporary consequence. But this time was different. Aldis laid down the law. Paul Heyman's employment with SmackDown was terminated, effective immediately. The Wiseman was being fired from the blue brand. The wrestling world collectively gasped. Paul Heyman removed from SmackDown? It seemed impossible, unthinkable. But Nick Aldis had drawn his line in the sand, and he wasn't backing down. From Aldis's point of view, this was about establishing that nobody is above the rules of SmackDown. It doesn't matter how legendary you are, how many championships your clients have held, or how much history you've made in this business. If you continuously undermine authority and create chaos, there will be consequences. Aldis reportedly told Heyman directly, "Your brilliance is undeniable, but your refusal to respect the structure of this brand has become untenable. SmackDown cannot function with two general managers, and I will not allow my authority to be constantly challenged and undermined." Beyond the power struggle, Aldis apparently cited concerns about the SmackDown locker room environment. Multiple wrestlers had complained about Heyman's favoritism, about opportunities being distributed based on association with the Wiseman rather than merit. Younger talent felt blocked from advancement, established stars felt disrespected, and the entire roster dynamic had become toxic. By removing Heyman, Aldis was sending a message to the entire SmackDown roster: this brand will operate fairly, opportunities will be earned, and manipulation will not be tolerated. There's also a business consideration here. SmackDown is a premium brand with global reach, major sponsorships, and millions of fans watching every week. The chaos that Heyman's constant scheming created was making it difficult to book coherent storylines, build reliable rivalries, and deliver the consistent quality that fans deserve. Aldis has a responsibility to the brand itself, not just to individual performers. And from that perspective, removing a destabilizing force, even one as talented as Heyman, makes logical sense. But perhaps most importantly, this decision establishes Aldis as a general manager with genuine power and conviction. Too often in wrestling, authority figures make threats they don't follow through on, announce consequences that never materialize, or back down when challenged by popular or powerful personalities. Aldis firing Paul Heyman proves that he's different. He's willing to make the hard decision, take the controversial action, and stand by his principles even when it means removing one of the most iconic figures in modern wrestling. That takes courage, and it establishes credibility that will serve Aldis well in future conflicts. Now, if you know anything about Paul Heyman, you know that the wise man doesn't just accept defeat and walk away quietly. So how has Heyman responded to being fired from Smackdown? According to reports, Heyman's initial reaction was a mixture of shock and calculated fury. Sources describe him as momentarily stunned. Apparently, he genuinely believed his value to SmackDown made him untouchable before quickly shifting into strategic mode, already thinking 3 moves ahead about how to respond to this unprecedented situation. Heyman's public response, delivered through brief statements and social media activity, has been characteristically brilliant. Rather than showing weakness or desperation, he's framing his removal as Aldis's biggest mistake, suggesting that SmackDown will suffer without his guidance and that his clients will ensure there are consequences for this decision. And that brings us to the massive question: what happens to Heyman's clients on SmackDown? If the Wiseman is no longer employed by the Blue brand, what does that mean for the superstars he represents? This is where things get really complicated. Heyman's clients could potentially follow several different paths. Option 1, they remain on SmackDown but without Heyman's advocacy, forced to navigate the brand on their own and prove they can succeed without the Wiseman's manipulation. Option 2, they rebel against Aldis's decision, creating chaos on SmackDown in an attempt to force Heyman's reinstatement or to make Aldis regret his choice. Option 3, they request transfers to other brands where Heyman could still represent them, potentially leading to a mass exodus that weakens SmackDown's roster. Beyond the immediate client situation, Heyman's removal creates a power vacuum on SmackDown. For years, the Wiseman has been a central figure in SmackDown storylines, a gravitational force around which major angles revolved. His absence will be felt immediately, and the question becomes, who fills that void? Other managers and advocates on SmackDown might see this as their opportunity to step into that influential role. Wrestlers who were previously blocked by Heyman's machinations might finally get their chance at major opportunities. And new storylines, ones that couldn't exist while Heyman dominated the narrative, can now be told. The wrestling industry's reaction has been fascinating. Veterans have expressed respect for Aldis's bold decision while also acknowledging Heyman's legendary contributions to the business. Younger talent on SmackDown have reportedly celebrated privately, seeing this as an opening for fresh opportunities. Fans are divided, some applauding Aldis for establishing order, others devastated that such an iconic figure has been removed from their favorite brand. Alright, let's get to the part everyone's wondering about: what happens next? Because in professional wrestling, nothing ever stays simple, and a story this big has countless possible directions. Paul Heyman doesn't just disappear, he shows up on another brand, potentially with his former SmackDown clients in tow, and wages war against SmackDown from the outside. Imagine Heyman orchestrating cross-brand attacks, manipulating inter-brand competitions, and doing everything in his power to sabotage SmackDown's success. This creates a massive brand versus brand storyline with personal animosity at its core. Heyman challenges his termination through wrestling's version of legal channels, appealing to higher authorities within the company. This leads to hearings, investigations, and a storyline where Aldis must justify his decision while Heyman presents evidence of his value to SmackDown. The corporate drama angle could be incredibly compelling if executed well. Here's a wild thought: what if this becomes a story about Heyman learning to operate within the rules? What if he returns to SmackDown eventually, but as a changed manager, someone who uses his brilliance to help his clients succeed legitimately rather than through manipulation? This would be a character evolution we've never seen from Heyman, making it potentially groundbreaking storytelling. Heyman's former clients, furious about his removal, make Aldis's life absolutely miserable. They refuse to follow directives, they disrupt shows, they target Aldis personally. This forces Aldis into a position where he must decide: double down on his principles and weather the storm, or compromise by negotiating Heyman's return under strict conditions. The most unlikely but still possible scenario: Heyman actually leaves SmackDown permanently, pursuing opportunities elsewhere or representing clients on other brands. SmackDown evolves into a post-Heyman era, discovering its identity without one of its most influential figures. This would represent genuine change and evolution for the brand. Beyond these specific scenarios, we need to consider championship implications. If Heyman's clients were in title pictures or holding championships, his absence fundamentally changes those storylines. New challengers emerge, existing feuds shift dynamics, and championship opportunities get redistributed. For Nick Aldis, this decision makes him a central character in SmackDown's narrative going forward. Every action he takes will be scrutinized, his allies and enemies will be clearly defined, and his success or failure as general manager will be judged largely on whether SmackDown thrives or struggles in Heyman's absence. The fan speculation has been absolutely wild. Wrestling forums are ablaze with theories, fantasy booking, and passionate debates about whether this was the right call. Some fans are creating detailed predictions about Heyman's next move. Others are organizing social media campaigns either supporting Aldis's authority or demanding Heyman's reinstatement. This is the kind of engagement that shows how much people care about these characters and this brand. The firing of Paul Heyman from Smackdown by Nick Aldis is more than just a shocking moment, it's a potential turning point for the entire brand. This decision represents a philosophical statement about authority, respect, and what Smackdown will be moving forward. For Aldis, this is his defining moment as general manager. He's proven he'll make the tough calls, but now he must prove that Smackdown can thrive without one of its most iconic figures. For Heyman, this is an unexpected chapter in a legendary career. The Wiseman has overcome every obstacle, outsmarted every opponent, and survived every threat throughout his decades in wrestling. How he responds to this setback will determine whether this is an ending or simply the beginning of his next masterpiece. And for SmackDown, the blue brand is entering uncharted territory. Without Heyman's influence, 4 better or worse new stars will emerge, new storylines will develop, and a new identity will be forged. What do you think about this decision? Did Nick Aldis make the right call firing Paul Heyman? What should Heyman do next? How will this affect SmackDown moving forward? Drop your thoughts, theories, and reactions in the comments. I'm reading all of them and I want to hear your take on this historic moment. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of wrestling's biggest stories, show some love by hitting that like button, subscribing to Suplex Rumble for daily wrestling content, and sharing this video with everyone in your wrestling community. I'm your host, this is Suplex Rumble, and we'll be covering every development in this story as it unfolds. The Wiseman may be down, but I guarantee he's not out. Stay tuned, wrestling fans, this story is just getting started. Use urgent, breaking news style graphics throughout. Incorporate dramatic music that builds tension without overwhelming dialogue. Include visual timelines and scenario breakdowns for clarity. Maintain high energy while remaining professional and analytical. All content is original analysis and speculation, fully respecting copyright and community guidelines. Emphasize fan engagement and community discussion throughout.